Okay, right. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I'd like to introduce our guests. And today we have Lucy Kane, who is the owner and publisher of Time and Leisure Media. We have Kat Nell Grace. I've just completely mangled that. My apologies, Kat, who is a strategic communications and marketing leader. And then we have Signe Norberg, who is head of public affairs and communications at the Aldersgate Group. And I just need to check if Ricardo's come in. We have Ricardo Pezzaluo, who is the entrepreneur, copywriter, educator, and storyteller, and probably coming in from Italy at the moment. So he's the glamorous one of the set of us. So welcome all. Can I just briefly get a quick introduction from Kat and Signe, and then Lucy and Ricardo? Ricardo's just coming in. Kat, can we start with you? Just a brief introduction about who you are and what you do.
We are.
Of course. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm Kat. I run a strategic marketing consultancy called CKG Marketing Strategy, and I'm based in East Yorkshire and London. So I'm on a mission to support 1 million small businesses to thrive through strategic and sustainable marketing that resonates deeply with businesses' ideal audiences. After 20 plus years serving in large global brands, banks like Barclays and HSBC, and working in their commercial marketing department, I noticed there was that small businesses that did really well had very sound and solid sustainable marketing strategies, but they were few and far between. On the other hand, I noticed most small businesses didn't last beyond a few years, and I began to wonder just why most small businesses didn't have a marketing strategy at all, let alone a sustainable one. So shortly after the pandemic, I made a decision to start my own business and work directly with small business owners and leaders. And I started working with small businesses of all shapes and sizes, from accountants and solicitors firms to IT providers and e-commerce businesses. And I realized they considered marketing an optional extra, something that they only did when there was extra money available to spend. So they were getting really inconsistent results due to intermittent efforts, and it was really very unsustainable, to say the least. So now I help my clients figure out exactly what's holding their marketing back and advise them on how to get better payback with long-term strategic marketing with sustainability at its core. And I have a vision of a thriving world filled with businesses of all shapes and sizes that are committed and contributing to all the pillars of sustainability, including not only the planet and people, but also the economy.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you very much. And we have full admiration for your screen behind you. It's always very captivating. Thank you. Ricardo, welcome. Do you want to just say a quick hello and what you do?
Hi, everyone. Hi, can you hear me right?
We can.
Perfect. Nice to meet you all. I'm Ricardo. I run an advertising agency called Together. We are active in mainly in Kingston and in other parts of Europe as well. I started it in 2014 with the aim of helping sustainable and social businesses thrive. Then we got a bit astray. Maybe it was a bit too early for this type of initiative, or maybe I was unlucky with mentoring or something like that. But we got more into advertising all sorts of businesses, from the corporates, events. I had let's say mid business age crisis in the middle. Well, when I was actually wondering what am I doing with my life, I became the person I wanted, like basically the opposite of the person I wanted to be, and I started traveling in eco villages and communities supporting different initiatives such as teaching kids sustainability, replanting forest, and a lot of other initiatives. And now I'm in the process of getting back to the core, so getting together back to helping social, sustainable, and sustainable businesses.
Thank you, Ricardo. Signe, welcome. Do you want to say a few words?
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. So yeah, I'm Signe. I'm Head of Public Affairs and Communications at the Aldersgate Group. And for those of you who do not know who we are, we're essentially an alliance of businesses, civil society, and educational institutes that argue for ambitious action on climate and the environment. So we have a membership of leading businesses and other organizations advocating for further action across the economy to further climate and environmental goals. And very much underpinning that is a vision that economic growth and sustainability can go hand in hand. But it's very much about how do we create a level playing field and ensure that all parts of the economy and all sectors play their part towards meeting the UK's climate and environmental targets. Prior to joining Aldersgate Group, I worked at a local authority where I looked at environmental issues, and I worked at a global public relations agency ahead of that as well, where I worked on a range of areas relating to environment, transport, food and drink. So I have a bit of a varied background, but a common thread throughout that has certainly been communications and so public affairs in terms of kind of highlighting sort of next steps for businesses in playing their role. So I'll leave it there, but very much looking forward to this morning's discussion.
Right. Thank you so much. And finally, Lucy.
Hi, good morning. Hello. So I'm the owner of Time and Leisure Media and have been running Time and Leisure magazine for 25 years. And also we run a creative design agency working with various different clients. So we get to see these kind of issues come up from various different perspectives, from local businesses, from our readers, and also from the marketing perspective of small and medium-sized businesses. So and also in my personal life, I work with a lot of greener campaign groups. So we've been leading campaigns for clean air, sustainability, tree planting. So we've seen it from the kind of consumer side and in kind of looking at what people really, really want. So what I see is there's a kind of a bit of a disconnect sometimes between businesses and consumers, and there is a real opportunity for businesses to do more within their businesses. There's also a lot of amazing initiatives that are taking place, but people aren't really talking about them and communicating that. And so there's a real opportunity to market those better and to keep up with the kind of like the new trends for how businesses and organizations are marketing themselves in this sort of green sustainable era. So yeah, and it's really exciting.
Words.
There's a lot of
all those words.
So yeah, so a very exciting arena.
It is. Thank you very much all. Some of the publicity before, we had Eli Anderson. Unfortunately, he can't make today. He has forwarded on a few links. We're just in the process of trying to get those set up. So after this, when we circulate the information, there will be some links from Eli, and I would encourage you to listen to them. He's a very thoughtful and man, and he comes from it from quite a slightly different angle. So we will be publicising those. And as usual, I completely ignored the fact to say actually who I am. And my name is Forbes. I'm the Chief Executive of the Kingston Chamber of Commerce. And we have been working with Joanna Rossi and her team for the last probably 18 months to 2 years on the green agenda. And one of the outcomes from this was to create a Think Green webinars. And the whole sense of this is to try and sort of put this into kind of common language that we can kind of understand what is actually going on, and hopefully these areas of discussions we can actually start implementing it and actioning it. And it's been a terrific journey so far, and I'm really looking forward to listening to what our guests are going to say this morning. We're going to start on a slightly broader view, and then we're going to come into more sort of detailed elements about the marketing. So, the kind of the first question really is a broad one, but it's actually really from the we had a pre-meeting last week, and it really kind of came out about the importance of your policy making, which sounds a wee bit sort of corporate, but it genuinely isn't. So the broader question really, and I'm going to start with Kat with this, is how important is it for a lot of Kingston businesses, whether you're micro, or medium-sized business, or into a large one, to have eco-friendly policies in order, not only for your supply chain, but also to gain new customers? So really it's a question about getting your policies in place. I'll start with Kat and then I'll go to Ricardo.
Thank you, Paul. So the short answer, in my opinion, is it's essential. And the reason I say that is because the audience that we're talking to, the priorities of audiences is changing. Okay, and we are becoming more aware of our environment. We're becoming more aware of our local environment and our communities and the global environment. And that, when I say environment, I really mean, you know, the whole piece, the economy, as well as people, you know, people's well-being, mind, you know, mental well-being, and the planet, you know, where we spend our time on the planet, and the quality of, you know, of life, right? So people are much more aware of that. Our audiences are much more aware of that. And so as that awareness develops, we need to make sure that our policies, the way we run our businesses, policies is a very formal word, but it's really about the way we run our businesses, the way we run our business as a micro, a small, or a large corporation is the same. It's the standards that we want to make sure we uphold for ourselves, for our businesses, and for our customers. And those standards are really, really important now for today, but also for tomorrow, and how the world will develop. So it's important to be prepared with policies that stand the test of time, long term. We need to think a lot longer term, really, with our policies. And it's all about balancing that emotional connection with the measurable KPIs, again, going back to very formal language, the measurables, how we track the performance of our businesses in that space.
Thank you, Kat. Ricardo, in terms of, from your perspective, is this an onerous task to create the policies? How would you approach this?
First of all, I would like to clarify, we take this from a marketing and storytelling and communication perspective, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So just, I agree with Kat in terms of the audience is changing in many ways. Our audience is changing in many, many ways. One of those ways is that we are more attentive, we are more careful about the environment, simply because perhaps my generation is the generation that could really see the beginning, the tip of the iceberg of what previous generations have created. In some parts of the Mediterranean, we could already see the forest line receding and the desertic line going forward. So we will be able to see the effects that we have, whereas actually before we could see it maybe on television, but then again, how real it is if you don't feel it, how real it is if you don't have the heat wave at home that is killing you, you know. So the brands will have to adapt simply because the audience will be more careful about this. So in purely marketing, brand image perspective, even brands that don't even care about sustainability because it's right, but because it's convenient, will have to adapt because the audience is changing. Then, of course, um, the other way the audience is changing is that we don't buy we don't buy what we need anymore. We have a lot of offer. There's a lot of offer. There's never been so much offer around. So uh, we buy in what we believe in. So the argument of shared beliefs will be very, very important now. So just stating new policies in order to certify that you believe in a certain type of growth will be incredibly important.
Thank you, Ricardo. Signe, I just want to try and appreciate, I'm just digging down a little bit, but in terms of creating eco-friendly policies, to make this accessible, what should we do? What can a business do? What's the definition of an eco-friendly policy?
Oh, that's a broad question, but I think from my from my perspective, I think that if we look across all types of businesses, different sizes, different sectors, one of the things that really stand out is the businesses that really and truly integrate sustainability, environmentally friendly policies into their business model. Are the ones that tend to do best. They're the ones that, you know, are seen as credible and authoritative voices, because by incorporating it into your business model, the sustainable choice is part of your everyday. It is not just as an add-on, as an additional CSR activities, corporate responsibility action. It is something that is truly embedded into your business. And you can see that in sectors such as, for example, banking, where you have a Triodos Bank, for example, that have truly integrated sustainability policies and climate and environmental policies into their business model in how they run their bank. But you can also, using a non-environmental example, look at a chain such as Timson, who have a very human-led value system embedded into their entire business. So I think taking that broad perspective in terms of what do I as a company stand for, and incorporating that will mean that it's more successful. It's also seen as more genuine, to connect to Ricardo's and Kat's points around the audience changing. Consumers are quite aware of the choices that they're increasingly becoming quite confident in the choices that they're making, and making sure that it is embedded into your business means that you're consistent and consumers know what they're getting when they buy from you compared to a competitor. So I see the kind of environmental sustainability policies as really essential for businesses in the long term, because this is also where we know the economic growth is going to happen. On taking an even wider perspective, I suppose, we know this is where economic growth is going to happen, because there's new markets being created, new demand for services, and really kind of taking advantage of that opportunity at a local level as well as the national level will be essential.
So essentially this, I mean, this is the foundation stone. Before you could think about any form of marketing, any form of messaging, this is the foundation stone to get your policy and to get that in place, isn't it? For
sure, absolutely. And I think that by doing that, it becomes a very natural choice as well. And I think that especially if you're a small business, that will be very crucial going forward, is that it's not seen as something additional, it's just part of your everyday.
And I think we'll come on to it a little bit later about this notion of sticking your head above the parapet to make sure that you're not going to get shot at, and we're going to come into that a little bit later. But I think, listen to what you're saying, I think there's almost this case that so many businesses and organizations sort of think this is our sort of our key messages for gaining new work and clients and marketing, but there needs to be kind of that you hand somebody saying, that's our policy, that's what we do. And I think we need to treat it in the same way that businesses in the past have looked at their core business strengths and their proposition. Thank you. Just kind of going more into Kingston then, because Lucy, you being at Time and Leisure and looking with a number of businesses, you've probably got a little bit more of a finger on the pulse of these things. But broadly speaking, where do you think Kingston is on a kind of environmentally kind of conscious consumer level? And do you have any kind of evidence to back this up? Where do you think we are at the moment?
Well, I think Kingston has always kind of been a leader in terms of green, being, very green and conscious about these things. But it's definitely on the increase. We, from readers, we're seeing more involvement in community projects, more kind of involvement in the community. I mean, as a magazine, we've always been about supporting local and being very much about the local community and encouraging people to shop local and support their local businesses. And I think that's always been important to Kingston readers. But I think it's definitely increasing, and there is also a sort of maturity of the conversation happening. So it's more of a case of people thinking, what can I do? How can I make a difference? And wanting to see projects happening in their local area, get involved, and then also seeing the businesses. And I think businesses are also thinking, what can we do? How can we make a difference? We're seeing kind of new campaigns coming through to say, do tree planting in the local area, or to support an initiative at a local school. So the conversation, yes, it's always been good in Kingston, but yes, it's upping and it's increasing. So we've increased our eco editions, which have particular focus on sustainability, from 1 to 2 this year, to kind of reflect that. But also that's ongoing every month as well. So it's just with those 2 focuses, those are opportunities for businesses to really sing and talk about what they're doing in a really good, strong environment.
Yeah. So further from that, then, how would you are there any kind of trends? Have you seen how businesses are kind of changing their presentation message? Is it much more community orientated, or is it sort of business focused? How do you see it?
Well, I think it's moving towards a more storytelling trend, and one that connects also with younger audiences. So from a design perspective, there's a sort of a much younger, fresher approach, which is much more visual. We're moving away from that sort of quite stereotypical kind of green look that talks about greening. And I get on a national level, you can see things like the Woodland Trust, who've brought in people to talk about their initiatives and what they're doing, rather than it just being, let's put green on this campaign and then people will know this is a sustainable campaign. So yeah, it's much more about the actuals of what people are doing in a very connected way with the community, rather than just a green label. And then sort of some actuals into these things. So what's the information? So real information that people can get into, whether that's planting 1,000 trees or significantly reducing various aspects of, say, carbon footprint. So I think I think storytelling and bringing in people is the newest sort of development, which is something that's very tangible that people can really get hold of. It's
that motive element, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's emotive. It's speaking to people about how they feel. I guess the story is very much for people about what's the future for my family, for my children, or for younger people, for me. And I think that's where the sort of direction is going. It's about what we're doing now, which will change the future, and tapping into that.
Signe, same question to you. I mean, from your sort of larger business there, can you see the trends in terms of the presentation of this, the conversations?
Yeah, I think that certainly holds true for a lot of businesses, and I think one of the things that we might come on to as well, and I think it was something that came up in the chat as well, is also something that businesses are also quite aware of concerns around, you know, greenwashing, and making sure that they present their genuine offering in a way that is credible, but also backed up by evidence and by science, and making sure that they are clear in what they're talking about as well. And I think that that's something that means that communicating well and clearly and specifically will be important in this field, because you want to make sure that you are as credible as possible and that you are as specific as possible, because that's how you kind of, you know, treat the trust that you're given by your customers, and that you're able to kind of carry on with the work that you're doing, and you're doing that in a way that people can connect with.
Thank you. I mean, I think what I'd like to quite do now is to sort of look at the benefits of green marketing as a general, and then kind of look at then the risks of green marketing, which Philip has put in the chat about greenwashing and the language. So let's start on the positives. What are the benefits of green marketing? Kat, do you mind just chipping in here, and then I'll go back to Lucy on this. So Kat, what would you define as benefits?
So the benefits now, green, the word green, I don't like to use it because of this association with the washing and the spin of it. So I like to talk about sustainable marketing. Okay, and if we're talking to a micro business, the benefits of sustainable marketing is that you will be able to sustain it for longer. It will be a continuous, consistent and regular activity embedded in your business, not just an add-on when you've got the money, or when you can, or when you've got the staff, or any of these things. It becomes something that is sustainable in your microcosm. But as you grow your business, that sustainability grows too. So you become better at picking people to work with that have a similar ethics and values, and you know, working relationship, culture. You build these things up from the core. Okay, so you build sustainability into how you work as an individual, and it builds out into your business as it grows. So the benefits are economic sustainability. You don't have these ups and downs and roller coaster, you know, things that we do with the economy that's up and down. When you have a sustainable marketing activity running through your business, you have continuous growth. There's always something in the pipeline. You're not you know, a slave to the ups and downs of economy. That's the essential one that I like to tell my clients about.
Thank you, Kat. Lucy, I may come back to Kat on something you just said, but Lucy, do you want to expand on this?
I mean, I find the benefits of green marketing, sustainable marketing, it's where the really exciting stuff is happening, and you can, whilst marketing your own business, actually the great thing is you can affect change on a bigger level. So through marketing I don't know, a sort of campaign of some kind, you're bringing that conversation to more audiences. So you know, for example, I've worked on a campaign to plant 200 trees, and leading it was kind of like, it was a real eye-opener in terms of what we were able to do. So we ran a multi-channel campaign across social media and various different platforms. We hit hundreds of thousands of people in this campaign. We raised over £35,000. We got it from sort of residents, from councillors, from businesses, everybody who wanted to kind of make a difference. and we had hundreds of people suggesting locations for tree planting. But the really interesting thing about this project, yes, it was a massive success and we got these trees planted, but the key part was that the conversations that happened through this with all aspects of the community and the council, the tree team, who thought that everybody hated trees because the only messaging they ever received was, oh, this tree needs to be cut down because it's putting bugs in my house, or it's causing subsidence outside my house, or the various, from the sounds of it, endless complaints some people have about trees. And for the first time, the council saw that actually people were really passionate, really excited about trees. We were able to communicate all of the many, many benefits of trees in how they help the community reduce flooding, reduce temperatures, you know, the sort of all the climate change, clean air. You know, there was so much to talk about. And as a result, the council then upped in their election manifesto, upped their commitment to plant 400 trees a year to 1,000 trees a year. So it had this sort of knock-on effect where the conversation changed to positivity. I mean, a positive conversation that we're all aware of, but within this particular, you know, the people who were actually making the decisions weren't kind of hearing it. So, you know, these are the effects that people can have. And I think it's a real connector. Like, if you get your story right, if you get your campaign spot on, you can connect with audiences that you'd have no chance to connect with. It has to be genuine, it has to be effective, but you know, there's a real chance to make a difference, and to make a bigger difference than just your business.
Thank you, that's very helpful. There's a question which Lawrence has asked in terms of kind of collectively coming together, and a sense of, do we work a little bit too much in isolation as individuals? And I think what you're saying is very much to try and broaden that up, to try and find other people to work with. Is there a sense of that happening more often, Signe?
I think so. I mean, I think part of that answer, I think, will connect to my kind of public affairs hat a bit, where I think businesses are increasingly seeing common themes, common challenges, common opportunities in the way that they run their businesses. And therefore, I think that as they all look at what role can we play in terms of meeting our net zero emissions targets and kind of restoring nature, I think that there's increasingly a dialogue between different types of businesses in how they can be part of meeting that challenge. So I do think that is a growing trend. I think that there will all be some unfortunate, I think, challenges also with businesses coming together, you know, in terms of competition and so on. But I think that there is a genuine dialogue taking place between businesses in terms of what do we need in order to also play a greater role in the future as well, and what are the policies that we need in place on a national scale, so that we're all kind of working from a level playing field. We're not penalized if we have a more sustainable offering than some of our competitors.
Thank you. Just to flip this then, because we've talked about the benefits, and there's that, yes, Kat, you've given us a fairly existential crisis moment, because we call these things green. So I'm just wondering whether we're going to have to start changing the name of our webinars now, after what you've just said about using the word green, which I kind of empathize with. Green is a lot easier to use graphically than sustainability there. Ricardo, let's get into the thorny element of the risks of green marketing, because I think we discussed this before in terms of that's sometimes a bit of nervousness of coming out to it, and also this undercurrent of greenwashing. Just to begin with, in terms of what the risk for green marketing, would you mind just kind of briefly describing to the audience? I'm sure most of them would be aware of it, but just sort of, what is the definition of greenwashing?
Well, first of all, I would like to put it very simply. There's different risks to green marketing and greenwashing. Um, One is confusion, meaning, for example, we talked about different types of sustainability in this very meeting. So there is economic sustainability, which is not necessarily environmental sustainability. There are two different things. A business necessarily will want both, but if we ask simply how can we be more sustainable, then we need to say very clearly, how do you want more sustainable? Do you want to be more sustainable, and in what aspects? Because a business can be very sustainable economically while destroying half of the planet, and vice versa. A business can be very sustainable, can be very green, but then at the same time struggle with cash flow. So clarity. What Signe was saying before is so important. Clarity. What's the goal? Let's define it as best as possible. And greenwashing actually thrives in this confusion, because there is a type of confusion that comes from um, innocent ignorance, and a type of confusion that and a type of business that thrives on it, in order for us to look at a specific action that they are doing and overlook the rest. So greenwashing sometimes is this simply, is not that the company is lying, is perhaps the company is marketing a certain element of its structure while wanting us to look the other way from the other 70% of the business structure. So confusion, and then of course there is the all marketers will know the element of addressing an audience. So what does the audience wants? The benefit, the features of the product. So greenwashing, the risk is that the brands will use green marketing simply to sell more to us at a specific target market without actually having the backup. And here again, a good solution is what Signe said before. Again, crystal clear data, backing up the stories, because it's important also. Sorry for digressing. Storytelling is incredibly important, but incredibly dangerous, because it's a very powerful tool. Very powerful tool. I will just mention a very inconvenient and unpleasant example, but that clarifies how how powerful storytelling is. Like, if I tell you this morning 300 Ukrainian children died, you will be like, oh, that's unfortunate, but at the same time, I'm not making you go there and pick up some. Whereas actually, if I tell you the story of Tom, who fell into a pit while the mother died and miraculously managed to go to Poland, and I will tell you the details of one single child, people will move more to help a certain cause for a story about one single element, rather than reading the data of hundreds of exactly the same cases. So that's how powerful it is. But then if you count only on the storytelling, that's where greenwashing will most probably lie.
Thank you. There's, there is an elephant in the room with this, which I think is, and Suzanne has put this into the chat. And I know that I'm slightly deviating, but I think this really kind of gets to the kernel of a number of these things, which is, I'll read this out because it's very well put as well. I'm interested in people's thoughts on how you talk about this without sounding smug or look at me. I mentioned that as an individual planted trees yesterday. If I tie my business there, there's a risk that it backfires, quotes, trying to make money off doing good. I think there's two things here which I'd like to kind of explore. One is the relationship between marketing, which is essentially known as to generate income, put that to one side, and also that notion of sort of looking a bit smug or look at me. So there's a kind of a visual outward, and then there's a monetary element to it. Kat, can I deal with the sort of the marketing and money in terms of, because you've talked about this before, and then Lucy, I'd like you to help us with this kind of, let's not look smug. Because I think these two are genuinely kind of where people get risk averse with the marketing. And I think there's a strain with this. Kat, what's the relationship with sustainable marketing in terms of and the relationship with finance, money?
So, okay, so like you say, you know, the idea of marketing, as understood by most, is that it's a income generating activity. You invest like a slot machine, right? You put the money in, you pull the handle, and then the money's supposed to come, right? That's the idea of it. The essence of marketing, though, is not really that. The essence of marketing is about creating a bond, connection with an audience. In order for that audience to feel like your message or your marketing, your communications, your business is valuable to them in some way, that is the essence of marketing. What comes from that could be profits and growth and money and things like that. But essentially, the purpose of marketing is to create that connection. So, so what I'm on a mission to do is to get back to that real purpose of marketing, rather than, you know, a lot of more modern. I mean, I remember being a kid, and there was just all these competitions, right, on the back packet of sweet packets or magazines, kids stuff, you know, put your name down, your address down, send this little slip in, and we'll get your data. And I could not figure it out as a kid. I just couldn't understand, like, what is it that they're after from me? Until we realize now, we're very aware data is worth money. And I think that they're trying to measure and track, you know, the performance of marketing, somewhere along the line got skewed, and we lost that essence of, we're trying to connect with people and give them value, show them how valuable we are to them. And I think that the spin of it has disconnected, you know, business from people and communities, and that's the biggest, like, risk, the damage that's happened. And I'm trying to just educate people a bit more about what is sustainable marketing, relationships and conversations. You know, conversations, marketing is about listening. Should be 80% listening, 20%, you know, giving messages and being visible and sharing key messages and stories and marketing stories and sustainability stories. You need to, like what Lucy was saying about that amazing tree planting campaign, the listening part of that campaign was what brought about the change, what strengthened the relationship between the council and the community.
There's a question which ties into this a little bit as well, which is zooming up this terrific amount of chat, which is really encouraging. And somebody's put, rightly or wrongly, offsetting. And again, I was thinking there's a number of businesses and airlines will say we offset this to particular. It's increasingly soon to be greenwashing, buying your way out of your own responsibility. It's almost like you damned if you do and damned if you don't. And it's just a very interesting how we've got into this little mindset in terms of, there are some businesses who say we put +1 back into an organization which plants trees. How can we start kind of working around this and actually slightly losing that cynicism a little bit. I know I'm going off piste here with this, but it's really kind of quite interesting. Ricardo, Signe, any thoughts? And I will come back to Lucy on the other part. Signe.
Yeah, I think it's a very important point, because I think especially the question of offsets, I think that it's important to recognize that it will vary, to be honest, depending on what industry and what sector that you're in, because I think that as a business, if you rely on offsets to claim that you're a sustainable business, I think that that would be a challenging concept, because offsetting does not mean that you reduce your impact on the environment. And if you have a sustainability strategy that's solely reliant on offsetting, there are probably other actions that you can take that will just reduce your overall footprint, and then the offsetting is an additional activity to reduce that. And a good analogy to think about this is that there are some sectors where we know solutions already. We know what the answer is. If it's improving the energy efficiency of your building, if it's around changing the type of fleet that your business has, those are known solutions that will reduce your impact without relying on offsets. But there are some sectors, for example, in energy intensive industries, where we don't have the same sort of technologies or solutions in place yet for them to fully decarbonize, and therefore there you can have a more legitimate role for offsetting. But I think that it needs to be clear that offsetting in and of itself is not the full solution. It's a more complex picture for businesses. And just to connect to one of the comments in the chat around the role of, for example, B Corp, but I think also science-based targets in this is crucial, because having initiatives like that, like science-based targets, where you set a target as a business of how you're going to reduce your emissions, and have evaluated that, having it had the target evaluated independently, and have follow through and reporting towards that metric, really strengthens your case. And I think that it's essential moving forward in order to make sure there's confidence in the pledges that businesses make. So I think that those type of schemes are really important, because it also means you can, whilst no business is the same, it gives you at least a baseline to compare different businesses. And they don't all need to necessarily be science-based targets, but that is really the gold standard in terms of businesses making credible commitments and reporting against those. So I just wanted to kind of bring those two comments together, because to me, I think that they're part and parcel really of how businesses can play a positive, progressive role basically in this space.
Thank you, Signe. I'm conscious that the time is flying by, as I thought it possibly would. I just want to come back to Lucy and to see, putting Lucy a wee bit on the spot here, to address this notion of appearing smug. Do you have any suggestions about how you can sort of swerve that or address it head on?
Yeah, no, good question. And I think, it's about going a bit deeper. So the kind of this whole idea of greenwashing really came from when there wasn't a very complex language around the whole kind of sustainable part of businesses. So it's, since then I think language has got more complex. The actual our understanding of it has got more complex. Sort of a handful of businesses are responsible for like 90% of carbon emissions in the world, and these businesses are masters of these conversations. So it was either Shell or BP who invented carbon footprint on a personal level, where they were told that's the most masterful bit of greenwashing that exists, really, because they're putting the responsibility onto us as consumers rather than taking responsibility by themselves as the business creating it. So I think as consumers we need to really look under the bonnet of these things, and we have to really question deeply. But as a business, it's the kind of like it's moving on from this green language, kind of getting a bit more complex and talking about sustainability, eco, like developing that language and talking in real kind of, you know, about the nuances of it. But I think the key thing is really thinking about the benefits to your customers or the benefits to your audiences, as opposed to look at us, we've done this, we're doing that. It's really thinking about how does that improve the lives of our customers or potential customers or the community around us or the people that we're doing this for. Who are we doing it for and why are we doing it? And you know, we apply that philosophy to all of the marketing that we do for people, but I think it's particularly key to come across as genuine and real, and for people to hear, because they want to hear what's in it for them. Actually, they're not very interested in you.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, that whether it's on the sustainable issue or if you're into engineering or something else, that same relevance of actually it's not about me, it's about you, and telling the story that way is where the benefits will come in. I think I just want to kind of go around the table now just to kind of start summarizing some of the key points for viewers here today in terms of what key messages that you would share, that their next steps, what could they take to really kind of create more effective marketing. I'll start with Kat and then go to Ricardo and then to Signe and then Lucy. So Kat, just sort of 3 kind of bullet points, if you can, to sort of just say this, this, and this. What can really help people's marketing?
So I'm gonna start with an overarching theme, and that is start with purpose. Okay, so make sure that you know what your purpose is, not only as a business but as an individual starting and working in a business. Make sure you're very clear on that purpose. That will help you define your values, your mission, and your vision. So those 3 things will help you to create marketing that has a soul, and you will then be able to talk to a specific audience, your particular target audience, about your vision, mission, and values, and you'll start to attract similar people into your business, into your life, that have the same vision, mission, and values. So I would start with purpose. That would be my main tip.
Thank you, Kat. Ricardo.
Especially if your business is genuine, so if it really walk the talk, let's say. I found that a lot of successful my field is more advertising than marketing. It's more about communication and how to communicate a certain subject, but especially in Kingston, what I found worked really well for businesses that were really making the sustainability transition or were really helping the community, is to be honest. It's not about you know, like big storytelling or making yourself look 10 times better than you actually are. I found that a lot of our audience appreciates honesty, even if it sends you a bit away from perfection. I believe it's really powerful. Some of our most successful video advert campaigns were just placing a camera in front of certain type of charity. They were just sharing genuinely what they were doing, but also their concerns and the benefits they wanted to their audience to have, and that was successful. So my suggestion would be honesty.
Thank you, Ricardo. Signe.
I think so. My key messages kind of takeaway is very much that sustainability is still, I think, is genuinely the way of the future. I think that businesses are moving in this direction, and I think that there's some comfort and confidence in that I want to communicate. I also think it's vital that you take this purpose that we've talked about today and kind of you integrate it into your business model. Take a holistic perspective in terms of your business and the activities that you do, and approach it through that holistic perspective. And by doing that, look also for partnerships, work with like-minded businesses, look for different types of partnerships, maybe with actors that aren't traditionally seen as a natural partner for you. There might be some opportunities there, and I think that there's really a wealth of knowledge and opportunities that also come from working with others as well, because it's not just you that's looking to make a sort of a positive impact.
Yes, that's very, very true. Thank you, thank you. Finally, Lucy.
Yeah, so I kind of want to say loads on this, but essentially what we see is businesses who are maybe doing some great sort of initiatives but are not really talking about it enough. And a great example is a business I went to see recently, and they are doing this challenge to plant 1,000 trees, and they in conversation gave me a leaflet that talked about it, and I was just like, oh, there is like a wealth of opportunities with a project like this. And really what they really still need to do is workshop this and think, who are their audiences, who wants to know about this, where are they, what things are important about them. They needed to basically amplify this on a much greater level, and kind of go out and reach people in various different platforms to tell them about it and engage them and bring them back in. So it's almost like, don't assume because you're doing a great you have a great commitment, or you have a great policy, or you have a great project, that people will automatically find it. And I think very often these things are kind of like hidden down on, policy of a website, or the team are doing something, whether it's like volunteering on a Friday. You really need to go out and tell people about it in a sort of a newsy way, or a sort of an engaging way. That it's very multifaceted, and there's just so much you can do. You need great visuals, great language, and some key snippets that people can buy into on it. So I would say amplification is really what a lot of businesses need to think about in terms of what they're doing.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. One thing which we had a pre-discussion before we met for today, and kind of a line which was really important, is just that nobody's trying to be perfect. Nobody can be perfect with this. The aim is to get better. And I think it's really important that, I mean, everybody here in this room is probably on a journey, and it's a starting point. It doesn't finish by the end of this week. It doesn't finish the end of next year. It's an ongoing journey. And I think nobody, as long as you're not going out saying, we've mastered it, we've done it all. No, nobody can. Nobody has. It's that incremental step by step. And as Ricardo said, and as all the guests said, be honest about that. You can't say, well, we've done everything. No, we've just done this. We want to do that. We're going to do this. And just build it up. And that way people will believe you and think, none of us have the answers to everything. We just take it step by step. Thank you so much to all of you for listening and for the chat. Terrific amount of helpful comments and observations. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Ricardo, Signe, and Lucy. Really, really appreciated your time and your energy this morning. I want to thank Joanna Rossi at the council, who's really been instrumental to get everybody together. There's a couple of things which I just need to quickly mention in the chat, is that at the end of last year, we set up a Kingston Green Business Community. Be lovely if you are part of this journey, you want to be a part of this kind of collective community. It's very easy to sign up to. And then next, I think it's on the 14th, we do have, I just want to go back up to the chat. There is a Decarbonising Your Website. Joanna has put this on Eventbrite. And it's interesting, there's this little thing coming through about sort of electronic decarbonizing the website. So that should look really, really interesting. So that's on the 14th. So that's this Valentine treat. Thank you all. As I say, Eli, who couldn't be here, he's a great storyteller. So we will put his link on. I would urge you to listen to those. But thank you again. Keep going and just be measured with this, but be brave as well, because actually the more I speak to our chamber members and listening to what these guys are doing, a lot of you are doing a lot of terrific stuff. And I think it's the very English nature of keeping it close inside. As Lucy said, maybe a little bit of amplification and honesty goes a long way. Thank you all. We'll see you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.